Yo, 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 what is good, friends? So today I'm going to be doing something a little bit different. So anybody who knows me in real life knows that I'm a huge fan of NFL football. And as a fan of NFL football, I like having discussions about football. And the football season is only a few months from now. So it's going to be upon us pretty soon. In preparation for that, I've decided that I will make a video going over every single team in the NFL's quarterback as kind of like a review of the quarterback. And I'm going to do it in alphabetical order, which means we'll start with the Cardinals, then go to the Falcons, then go to the Ravens, Bills, Panthers, and so on. Although, Panthers, Bengals, and so on. Which means the first quarterback I'm going to have to look at is Kyler Murray. All right. So the first guy I'm going to look at is Kyler Murray. Now, Kyler Murray's been in the league for 2 seasons, and he's been fairly impressive in those 2 seasons. You can see all of his stats right here. Close to 4,000 yards every single season, 24 touchdowns, last year, 10 interceptions, and 26 touchdowns with 12 interceptions in 2020. Now, Kyler Murray is definitely one of those quarterbacks that I don't really watch a whole lot of, just considering the fact that I'm a Ravens fan, so I will try to be objective about Lamar Jackson when we get to the Ravens, but we're doing Kyler Murray right now. These are actually pretty fair stats, and I mean the way we're gonna do this is give a quarterback a grade of an A to an F, well A plus to F actually, uh, at the end. And in all honesty, these are pretty decent stats. These aren't anything spectacular, but they're pretty decent. Um, Considering the fact that he also runs a lot, these are actually pretty high passing yards for a guy that runs a lot. And 11,000 passing yards in just 2 years is really, really good. That being said, I want to look up his win percentage real quick. Win loss record. So Kyler Murray actually has a negative win rate in the NFL. It's about a 49% win rate here, pretty close to it. But it's not that great. So in terms of winning games, Kyler Murray isn't the most efficient. Now y'all might remember that the Cardinals actually were the last team standing in the what team might have a chance to go undefeated last year. All right, so the Cardinals in and of themselves were pretty good last year, but I don't even remember them really making the playoffs. Playoff record. Let's see. So Kyler Murray, um, I don't know that he's ever really made it to the playoffs. I don't think. Oh, well, that's overall. Here, we can look up last time Cardinals NFL made playoffs. Playoff. So, for the first time since the 2015 season, the Arizona Cardinals are in the playoffs. And although it's been over half a decade since their last postseason run, the Cardinals made it all the way to the NFC Championship game last time out. Did the Cardinals make the playoffs? I don't even remember them being there, but here's a picture of the Cardinals in the I assume in the playoffs against the. I'm gonna look up. I don't watch the. I'm a big fan of the NFL, but this is a hard one for me because I don't watch a whole lot of the Cardinals, and I can't remember if they were even in the playoffs. 2021. Let's see here. We'll find out pretty quickly. So yeah, they got destroyed in the wild card round against the Rams, and the Rams, of course, we know ended up winning the Super Bowl. So they did make the playoffs last year, but the Cardinals absolutely got destroyed, and Kyler Murray himself had a really bad game. Look at that, 19 completions out of 34 attempts, 137 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. The fact that they were even able to score 11 points of that performance is actually kind of impressive from the rest of the team. But a good lord, that they get destroyed by the Rams. Now, the Rams would go on to win the Super Bowl, so that's kind of not that much of a surprise. I mean, you look at Matthew Stafford, you know, 13 out of 17 completions. Not that many attempts, to be honest. 202 yards and 2 touchdowns. That's still a pretty clean game from Matthew Stafford there, comparatively to Kyler Murray. So the Cardinals made the playoffs last year with a record of 11-7 last year. But like I said, overall, Kyler Murray is 22, 24, and 1 in his whole career. So that means he has, and actually, it looks like a 47% win percentage in his whole career. So, 47% win percentage isn't that great. His stats are pretty good, and a lot of people will say, wait, but hold on. His coach is Cliff Kingsbury, right? Cliff Kings. Cliff Kingsbury, right? His coach is Cliff Kingsbury, and Cliff Kingsbury is known for being a very mediocre head coach. Okay, so he's kind of just known as being a mediocre coach. NFL record is probably the exact same as yeah, it's the exact same. Actually, it's not. It's 24-24-1, which I don't even really know. I can't remember if Cliff Kingsbury was hired before or after they got Kyler for the first year, but I can't remember. I don't really remember how long he's been the coach of the Cardinals, but he did not even have a winning record in college football when he was the coach of what Texas of Texas Tech or whatever it was. Yeah, he did not have a winning record of Texas Tech at Texas Tech. Now he does really well in the beginning of the season with all of his teams. Look at this. Texas Tech 2013 7-0, you know, except for like whatever this was. And then he kind of just ends up kind of falling off. He's been kind of a mediocre coach like his entire life. Like 2019. So he's been the coach of the Cardinals since 2019. And like 2021 they're 7-0 and then they went 3-5 for the rest of the season. So, this is about Kyler Murray though. Right? So you look at these stats right here, and he's been on the team since 2019. Um, and like you look at the stats overall, and they're pretty good. But they're not like spectacular comparatively to like a lot of other quarterbacks in the NFL. Like if I were to get like a list of quarterbacks, list of NFL starting QBs. Like, okay, list of NFL starting QBs. So We're just gonna go over all the ones that I know start. Matt Ryan starts. Andy Dalton doesn't. What is this? This is like old as hell, bruh. Who the fuck made that? Jesus Christ. Okay, so this is a ranking which we probably don't even want to look at because yeah, but you guys are gonna okay. So there you go. Here's the actual list. Okay, so this might be a little bit outdated. Matt Ryan says he starts for Boston College. We know that's not true. Tyler Huntley is not the starter for the Ravens, but let's just replace that with fuck, Lamar Jackson. This is old too. But you go down this list. KSKM is what? Who in the what made this list? What is this list? Good lord. Okay, so this might not even be a good list to look at either. But I mean, you look at this list and you're like, okay, like let's go through this. I think, there's Kyler Murray right there. Matt Ryan. Is Kyler better than Matt Ryan? Probably not. He's probably around the same skill level, I think. Tyler Huntley doesn't even count. Let's put Lamar Jackson there. I think Lamar's better than Kyler. Um, and Kyler has played Lamar once and lost once. So Kyler has a negative win rate against Lamar. Josh Allen is better than Kyler. Um, Sam Darnold is way worse than Kyler. Like Sam Darnold is worse than Kyler. I don't even think Sam Darnold is gonna start this year. It's probably gonna be Baker Mayfield there. Andy Dalton doesn't even start. I don't like this is Josh Fields. I think I think Fields is basically just a younger version of Kyler. It reminds me of uh, of Kyler, but it says Andy Dalton right there. But we're gonna ignore that. Brandon Allen, who the hell is that? Oh wait, this must be from like a few years ago when Joe Burrow got injured. Anyway, this is Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow's better. Um, this is Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield is probably not. Yeah, Baker's not as good. Dak is probably around the same skill level. I would say Dak and Kyler are probably around the same skill level, honestly. Like you look at the body of work, Drew Lock. This is well, I don't even know if Drew Lock is going to be starting anywhere, but yeah, Jared Goff. I think Goff is overrated. I think Kyler is better. Like Kyler is like you go through the list, right? Like Kyler is better than a lot of these guys. Like he is better than a lot of these guys, right? But there are also guys that are better than him. And then I feel like he's probably kind of like in the class of like Derek Carr or like Matt Stafford, who's getting like way too much credit right now because he's a Super Bowl champion now. I feel like he's in that kind of like mix of like those kind of like guys that are kind of like in the middle. But like everybody overrates Kyler by so much. And I'm not entirely sure why, because he has zero playoff wins. He has a negative record. His stats are pretty good, but then he has games like this where he is just awful. So I feel like overall, is Kyler a good starting quarterback? Yes, I think he is a good starting quarterback, but I feel like as a starter in the NFL, there are too many like people that are better than him to say that he's like an A tier quarterback. I think honestly, Kyler Murray with what he's done in the NFL, which is get a team like the Arizona Cardinals, which by the way, let's look at the Cardinals' weapons. Okay, so these are running backs. We're not gonna look at that. Christian Kirk, excellent wide receiver. People underrate him a lot. Then you also had, I believe, DeAndre Hopkins at one point. Um, AJ Green, but he's out of his. Uh, he's kind of like out of his prime, so he doesn't really count. DeAndre Hopkins isn't in here, but like Kyler Murray has a decent amount of weapons. Like he's got Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins, James Conner is a pretty good running back. Chase Edmonds is a decent running back. Like the Cardinals and the Cardinals defense is pretty dang good too. I think they got pretty banged up down the line, but Chandler Jones, Byron Murphy, like these are some big names right here on this. Dante Thompson, like these are some really good names. J.J. Watt. Well, like the Cardinals defense is really good. Okay, and then you've got like this is only one example of one game, right? So you look at like the games that they won. This is preseason, so that doesn't matter. The Vikings Cardinal they won by 1 point. Then you get like they destroy the Jags, but the Jags are bad. They won against the Rams here. That's pretty impressive. Close game against the Niners. Went against oh yeah they went on like a big gigantic winning streak, and then they lose to the Packers, and then have like a couple of games where they go up and down, and then they go ahead and they end up not having a great run at the end of the season and basically just kind of losing most of their games at the end of the season. And then they get to the wild card. They've made it through at 10-7. They started the season 7-0, and then they win 3 games after that. After the 7-0 start, they won 3 games, and then they lose the wild card game they played. So it's kind of like yes, the 7-0 start is great, but that's kind of reflective of Kyler Murray, is it not? It's kind of partially reflective of how he's doing. Now they score a decent amount of points, but like let's be honest, basically every team scores a lot of points these days. So like Kyler Murray doesn't really elevate the Cardinals that much for me to say that he's like super good. I think Kyler Murray is definitely a good player, but I think that he doesn't really elevate his team as much as people say. And I think that there are much better quarterbacks in the NFL than he is. But that being said, I think he's a decent quarterback, and I think he is probably a good standing point as like a middle ground for the NFL in terms of quarterbacks. So for Kyler Murray, like looking at what he's done, the record, not great. The stats are probably the most impressive part about him, right? Like stats fantastic. The stats wise he's really good. The only thing is he does throw like potentially maybe too many interceptions. I mean, look at the interceptions, right? Throughout his whole career, he's thrown 36 interceptions to 7. I mean, 70 touchdowns is really good, but then 36 interceptions in just like 3 years is kind of a lot, right? Like that's basically 10. That's 10.6 interceptions a year, and that's kind of a lot. Um, it's not horrible, right? It's still like way more touchdowns than interceptions, and that's what you want. But the reality is, it's maybe a little bit too many interceptions to be consistent, and that's why the Cardinals are. That's part of the reason why the Cardinals are not consistent. Um, is because of Kyler Murray not being as consistent as he needs to be all the time. So I think Kyler Murray is a good quarterback. I think he's like a B, right? I think final grade would be like B, but obviously he's one of the like I think least compelling quarterbacks just because he plays for the Cardinals and they're one of the least compelling teams in the NFL. I think they've been the like if you look at their history, they are the losingest team in the NFL um, ever in like the history. If you span the history out forever, they would be the losingest team. So I don't think he elevates his team enough for me to say he's above a B. And I think that he's definitely good enough for, me the opponent. I think he's a solid B overall. We could watch some highlights, but at this point, the video's probably been a bit too long anyway. So I'm gonna go ahead and peace out, watch this, see if it's good, and then come back to try to record it again if it's not. So see y'all.